Welcome all. I know that it's been a really continues to be a really challenging time for us all, for our country, uh, in particular for those who are being targeted by ICE. Has been a really it's been a terrible week for that in LA and across the country. It's also been a very difficult time with escalation in the Middle East, the assassination of a representative in Minnesota, um, the escalation of police response to protests, to the Marines and the National Guard being called out on our citizens. I think you all could give a list of things that have been particularly unsettling and difficult, enraging, experiencing firsthand the heartening nature of all of the people who have been coming out into the streets, as well as the difficulty of responding to the reactions. So within all of that, and to acknowledge today as Juneteenth, a day of celebration, to be inspired and grounded in the work that has been done for so many years. And there is, of course, so much more work that needs to be done. I would like to start with a video that I saw today as it was inspiring to me in relation to the LA, the uh, raids uh, and responses to it.
What's going on, world? I'm in the city of angels, and this is the world that is happening. Let me begin with I love my city, not for its overpriced rent, not for the fake stars on Hollywood Boulevard. I love LA for the people that helped raise me, the people at the taco stand that feeds me and my whole family for under $20, the people at the Santee Alley who sold me affordable jeans and made me my favorite Tupac shirt so I can be fresh on my first day of 8th grade. The flower vendors, always kind, always there when I needed to buy flowers to say thank you to my mom for raising me and my sister. The day laborers outside Home Depot who shared their heart to a kid with a flip camera so I can begin my journey as a storyteller. These people aren't just my neighbors. They are threads woven into the fabric that makes this city what it is. But they also made me. And now they are disappearing because masked men who are not from our neighborhoods are abducting them, separating them from their families and our community. So LA took to the streets, and if you never had a loved one ripped from your arms, or have never had people you know at risk of being taken, it might be difficult to understand why someone might throw a rock or anything they can find to stop them from being taken. But we won't get into that, because that's not even the biggest threat to this government. What this government fears more than a flying plastic water bottle or a burning car is our relentless sacrifice and commitment we give to each other to fight for a better life. A vital lesson we inherited from the very people at risk of being kidnapped right now. They have shown us what it means to struggle, what it means to endure, and what it means to take care of each other. And as the media and politicians will focus on looting and a narrative that the people are violent, what is actually happening right now is a new world being born. A system rooted in care and resistance, where people have built networks to alert each other when an ICE raid is happening, where people are standing up to federal agents and kicking them out of their neighborhoods, where people are patrolling their blocks, where people are protecting the vulnerable targets of abduction, where people are buying groceries for people who are too scared to go outside, where high school kids show up every day to the building that holds their families and their friends' families hostage, where people dance, sing, and fight back any way they can, where people take hits from the people who are paid to protect us, where people give each other free Medicare. It's clear that the only thing these federal agents know how to do is take. But our city will forever know how to give. And that will always be our way and how we win, even when it seems like we are losing everything. Thank you, LA.
Thank you all. I hope that was inspiring to you. It was to me today when I saw it. I feel like he captured a lot of what I've been feeling and a lot of what I've been seeing. So I thought that was a good way to start our meeting. This call started with the Worth Fighting for mass call that happened 2 days after the election. And then they had hosted together a couple months after that. And I pulled together all of the emails from the people who were in that and started the West Coast call because I think the most important thing is that we are able to, as particular as groups, not have to reinvent the wheel to support one another across the coast. And we have been doing Greater Los Angeles pro-democracy signal chat of group leaders, and it's been amazing. We have been able to, we've built up an action signal chat and an art activism signal chat, other chats that are about a little bit going deeper into certain things. But the support that's been going across that has been so inspirational. It's been amazing. And I see the potential here for something similar. And so that's the idea behind this. Why don't we go then to Frida. Is Frida here? Frida Fari, Iranian-born translator, writer, librarian here in Los Angeles, a member of our NILA Alliance for Democracy group, is going to share with us about the Israel-Iran war right now.
Hello, everyone. It's so glad to see so many people here. And thank you, Mary Linda, for organizing this. You're tireless and amazing. So as you know, or some of you might not know, I'm Iranian American. I came here as a teenager. And so my formative years were spent in Iran, or at least a good deal of my formative years. And I've been, writing about Iran for many years. I have a blog called Iranian Progressives in Translation. And I just wanted to say that what is happening right now with this war, the Israel-Iran war, is so horrendous. It is going to have, if it continues, and if the U.S. gets openly involved, or U.S. is already involved, but if it gets openly militarily involved, it is going to have such catastrophic ramifications that are beyond belief, that would dwarf anything we've seen in all the other prior Middle East interventions, or the horrible genocidal war in Gaza, because we are dealing with two authoritarian states that are really out to kill each other, to destroy each other. Israel wants to destroy the Iranian state, and Iran wants to destroy Israel, or the Iranian government. And now the US gets involved, as has been mentioned, that the US is going to use its bunker buster weapons to then drop a bomb over a Fordo nuclear power plant in Iran that would go half a mile underground to destroy this nuclear centrifuge. It is going to be catastrophic because it's going to release radiation, to say the least. But already they've done so much damage. The Israeli attack on Iran has done so much damage to civilians that this would just make things even worse. Now, a lot of you might know that the Iranian people really hate their regime. We had a Women Life Freedom movement in 2022. We've had a series of uprisings in the last, since 2009. Every few years, we've had a popular uprising against the regime. So this is a hated regime. It does not, we do not need Israeli intervention or US intervention to get rid of this regime. We need to help the Iranian people in other ways, help the feminists, the labor activists, the national minority, religious minority activists, the political prisoners. There are all kinds of ways in which we can help them, and you can go to my blog, Iranian Progressives in Translation, to learn about that. We do not need this intervention. This is only going to further destroy whatever we have in Iran and destroy the very basis that we have for overthrowing this regime in a way that's popular and involves the will of the majority of the Iranian people. And for Israelis too, I'm worried because they've been taken hostage by this horrible authoritarian regime. I'm sorry to say that so many Israelis support the government that they have right now, but what the Netanyahu government is doing right now with this war is that it's going to bring further destruction to Israel. I don't want Israel to be destroyed. I'm not against the state of Israel. I want both countries to exist, and I want democracies in both. And so I think of what we can do in the US, to sum up what I was saying, is that we should do everything within our capacity to oppose direct or indirect US intervention in this Israel-Iran war. Speak out against Trump talking about sending the bunker busters or any kind of direct military intervention. Of course, I've been against U.S. military aid to Israel, which is going toward killing the Palestinians. But this is a whole new level. And so I think we should, even if we're not concerned, even if some of you aren't concerned about the Iranians or the Israelis, you should be concerned about yourself, your own well-being. That Iranian government has a lot of proxies in the region still, despite how it's been weakened in the past year. It can unleash, it can organize terrorist attacks. It can attack not only US bases in the Middle East, it can attack US civilians. It can, again, organize terrorist attacks in the United States. We don't want that. And the Iranian people don't want that either. So please, everyone, do everything within your capacity to oppose further US military intervention in the region, in this Israel-Iran war. And please go to my blog, Iranian Progressives in Translation, which is iranianprogressives.org. I have a statement published there as of 2 days ago, which is a translation of a statement by Iranian intellectuals who are opposed to the war, opposed both to the Iranian regime and to what Israel is doing and to US intervention. And I think it offers a very good principled position. And they are all opposed to nuclear weapons and even nuclear energy for Iran, because Iran does not need nuclear energy, or certainly not nuclear weapons. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Frida. I always appreciate how you are able to share information in a way that's very accessible and yet has a depth and breadth to it. Thank you. Frida has presented for a number of our programming. Part of our work, along with a lot of the other groups, has been to create programming to inform us, give people information so that they are able to choose how best to act given the information and knowledge. There are also trainings going around. One of the groups that has participated, Extinction Rebellion, which is a group started by Stephen, who's on this call. Stephen, in partnership with 5051 and LA Progressive, put on a Know Your Rights program last week. We know that there's a formal presentation that we'll be able to share with everyone, but I think that an opportunity for you to share it and for people to ask questions, it is such a vital piece of the work that we're doing. Thank you.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Mary Linda. And hi, everybody. It's great to see a crew gathered for all the right reasons and to be part of. I want to clarify something. I'm not the founder of Extinction Rebellion. I am the founder or co-founder of the Los Angeles chapter. To give people a little background and just focus, we do a lot of work around nonviolent direct action, civil disobedience. We have shut down banks, occupied consulates, a lot of sort of direct action type work on the streets. We've also done a lot of backboning for many of the youth climate groups like Sunrise and Youth Climate Strike and people of that nature. And we are completely focused on nonviolent direct action as a way to move the dial because historically, as I think many of you know, all of the relevant movements, all of the rights related movements, all of the progress that we've made over the last 100 years in this country and elsewhere is made usually with the spark of nonviolent direct action playing a very definitive role in galvanizing communities and cities and countries, and it's a pretty powerful tool. I've been an activist all my life, pretty much since I was a kid, and I've had the good fortune to have some really great teachers along the way, and I get to do this work with others, and now it's more about passing along knowledge. We did this training on last Friday, a week ago tomorrow. And the training, to just give you an overview of what we did, we had a pretty classic Know Your Rights training, which is based on NLG, National Lawyers Guild framing, and ACLU pretty much covers the same ground. We were scheduled to do this with actually the chair of the Mass Defense Committee of the National Lawyers Guild. But literally 4 days after we had locked everything in and were planning it, as we all know, last week, well, hell broke loose in Los Angeles, and many, many immigrant arrests, and organizations like the National Lawyers Guild and the ACLU were, working 24/7 with hundreds of new clients, if you will, new casework to be dealt with, new rights to be defended. So at the very last minute, we were very lucky to have Sharon Kyle from LA Progressive, who I imagine many of you are familiar with that website. They've been doing it for 20 years. Sharon raised her hand and said she'd be happy to share her version of a Know Your Rights training. So we were able to deliver that to many hundreds of people, and we will be doing it again. And we also incorporated into the training uh, something we call broadly jail support, which is how to address the circumstances around someone being detained slash arrested at a protest. And that was delivered by Eric Gill, who is also from Extinction Rebellion Los Angeles. And for the last 5 or 6 or 7 years, he and I have been doing a lot of work together with the organization. He has very direct experience of what it means to both be on the outside, helping with jail support, and being on the inside, being supported after having been arrested. So we had a great training also recorded in that regard. The training was um, started or prefaced by a classic land acknowledgement from the Gabrielino Shoshone community here in Los Angeles, which is we're very rigorous about delivering land acknowledgement in all the public work we do. And 5051 was extremely active with us as partners. And I just want to tip my hat to Mary Linda for her enormously influential work in helping us put all this together. The piece that I think that I delivered is pretty much an overview of the history of nonviolent direct action and civil disobedience. We worked our way through dozens of historical examples of the power of nonviolent direct action and the history of it, and how civil disobedience and NVDA have made such a huge difference in the world. I can do a very cursory overview of that, or I can be quiet and listen and take some questions. But I'm really glad to be here. And for those of you who have, I heard somebody earlier say this, she went to her first demonstration. I think that is just totally awesome. And honoring that from the ground up, what we find that march that person was at is an example of nonviolent direct action. And the experience that we've had over the years, I've worked on Occupy and indie media and a whole lot of global water rights and environmental work over many years. Every time there's an opportunity for people to step into this kind of an action, whether it be a march or something similar to that, um, there are a couple of hundred different ways of doing nonviolent direct action, and there are a lot of ways of being involved in actions that don't require putting oneself in a position to be arrested. You can, for any action, any action, there's usually maybe, 10 people for every person who's getting arrested playing a different role in that circumstance. That can be anything from police liaison to marshaling to de-escalation to making sure the folks who are involved have food and water. And it's a profound community-based experience. And every time I've been involved in this kind of a thing, I find there are people who come out at the other side of it feeling as if they've just discovered their agency and their power in the world. And rather than being in the despair of watching what's happening around us and finding ourselves in a state of, let's just say, overwhelm and disappointment and frustration and anger and the entire spectrum of emotions that go along with objecting to what is happening around us, especially now, especially with what's happening right now. To be part of a group, whether it's XRLA or whether it's, there's so many groups to be part of, to join forces with folks who are doing work on the ground or work on policy or inside the political hallways or outside on the streets. I just can't emphasize enough what a transformative emotional, psychological, spiritual experience that is for people. And out of despair into action is pretty much the phrase that I would stop with. I just want to mention one thing to give you a contextual frame here about Extinction Rebellion. It started in October of 2018, and 150 people in London, because of some planning, were literally able to shut down the city of London by blocking the main arteries into and out of the city. That's 150 people. And 6 weeks later, the London City Council declared a climate emergency, followed by the UK declaring a climate emergency, and then Ireland, and the list goes on and on. So, to take action in that way, non-violently, I want to add, peacefully, I want to add, it can have massive impact. And of course, we could go through history and talk about other examples like that, but I wanted to give you a contextual frame. I am complete. Thank you.
Certainly. And someone asked if the website, yes, xrlosangeles.org is the website.
Yeah, or xrla.org. And if folks are interested in learning more about the organization, sure, feel free to send an email and one of us will absolutely welcome you into a conversation.
Right. Thank you so much. Marco had shared, I'm interested in the regime's use of masks, no marking, no badges, name tags, unmarked vans, etc., being used to abduct people, and the similarities around the world to the same practice, specifically in South America, Latin America, and the fear that it must bring to people from those countries that are here. This has to be causing PTSD issues. I'm perceiving this correctly. This seems to be a premeditated tactic. Jed answered that. Yes, existing authoritarian playbook provides relevant guidance to groups interested in violent takeover. Stephen, do you have a particular response to that question?
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, I have a broad response to it, which is simply this, that what we saw last weekend, the 5 million, 11 million, pick your number, what we saw last weekend was a correction and a change in the momentum and a very clear signal to those who would use the tools of no marking, no badging, et cetera, which are precursors to authoritarian history in so many ways. And I will use the word fascism very directly and openly because I believe that we are, it's the late 30s in Germany right now, here in the US, no doubt about it. And to think that isn't the case is to miss all these signals, which Marco so eloquently listed. These are symptoms of those kinds of efforts. And the only thing that's going to work is people standing up in many different ways. Certainly, feet on the street, boots on the ground. What we did last weekend was a very clear message to those who think they can suppress, subjugate, frighten, terrify the population. Not going to happen. I personally feel so grateful for what happened last weekend and what will happen on July 4th and what will happen on July 17th and what will happen on these dates that are popping up. All these organizations are starting to feel empowered to gather. And whether it's 5051 or it's, a host of other organizations, Indivisible, Democracy Action Network, some very large groups that are developing coalition with each other. I think we're going to see an ongoing pulse and an ever increasing pulse of anti-fascist, anti-authoritarian, human activities that are, putting Mr. Trump and Samo High School graduate Stephen Miller on notice that they can't play this game with the American people. And frankly, I'm going to say one more thing, and then I'm sorry if I'm going on too long. But there is I grew up in, as many of you may have, in the 60s. I sort of came to political consciousness, and there was this thing called the silent majority. Well, I think there is a massive, massive number of Americans who are realizing what's at stake here finally and are stepping up finally and are not having it, just are not having it. And I think I could go pretty deep on how utterly painful it is to see our neighbors and our friends and these families being torn apart by an opportunistic and I think highly damaged set of humans who are in power right now. And we, as compassionate, humane, empathetic humans, are required to stand up now. And you worry that nobody's going to. Well, guess what? Millions of us are on the streets now, and there'll be more. That's my.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Stephen. And we'll have a chance to talk a little bit more about successes a little bit later on. But I wonder, Ingrid, if you would be able to jump in. I'm kind of calling you on the spot. There you are. Hi, Ingrid.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I feel like it's a chance for me, a nice time for me to introduce you as someone who has lived through a very similar experience and being out in the streets in Venezuela, um, also being called to start your own group. What you have been able to do in Santa Clarita that has probably never seen anything like what you pulled together last Saturday. So if
Oh,
you could
yeah.
share a little bit.
Thank you, Marilinda. And thank you, Stephen. Stephen actually and Marilinda helped me get through some nervousness there and how to deal with the police here in Santa Clarita, which actually turned out pretty good, Stephen. They actually came out to help. But anyways, my experience, you guys, is it's all over the place. Like I told Marilinda, I'm new to activism in the United States. I was born in Venezuela. I moved here about 30 years ago. And when I moved to the United States, Hugo Chavez was in jail. He was not anywhere near to supposed to be president, but again, he got pardoned and history took over. You know, he got victimized and people just went all over the place. Very charismatic, mean SOB, right? So to make, you know, it's been 25 years in Venezuela, and peaceful activism was started too late. We lost a lot of time learning something we didn't know, which was how to be a community and how to go out in the streets peacefully, because we just never did it. You know, last time prior to before I was born, when there was a dictatorship in Venezuela, people forgot. People, you know, history got rewritten all over again, and people just didn't remember what it was like to live under a dictatorship. And our Latin blood was easy to forgive. You know, we're happy people. We like to party, go to the beach and have beers and, you know, and Coronas and whatnot, right? So with that sense, we don't have the 250 years of history that the United States has. With that said, with the people in Venezuela took too long to actually react. And I was afraid at some point when in 2016, I just saw immediately when Donald Trump was running, I like immediately, the minute I saw it, I said, this guy is just like Hugo Chavez. You know, a lot of people in my country didn't see that though, didn't see it with Hugo Chavez and didn't see it with Donald Trump. And I still have that argument. I was telling Marilinda, I'm actually working on a documentary regarding polarization and trying to understand how there's that divide still, that people can't recognize the signals. I just like Stephen said, I felt like I had to do something. You know, I left Venezuela before Venezuela was completely deteriorated, but my family was all there. And I used to fly, you know, twice a year and do the parties and the birthdays and everything. And then one day it was just, I was opposition and I was never able to go back to my country. And but I did the marches when they were, you know, millions, because Venezuelans marched out by the millions. And they still do. And just last July, we had an election that it was a miracle election, how it happened, but they didn't recognize it. You know, we won with 90% of the vote. And the guy, you know, Maduro just, he didn't care. He just stayed. So one of my concerns right now here is kind of like, what do I do with what I know from what I lived and what, you know, we've been doing for 26 years? Because I have been an activist in Venezuela, even though I'm from far away. I help through networks, and when there's marches and people are being tear gassed and all this, you know, we help out with media, with helping them through an application called Cello, you know, how to get from one place to another, calling people in buildings, like, you got to open your door. There's 20 people coming down the street, whatever, they need a place to hide. And the difference is from here, right now, which is what I fear and why I'm out in the streets the way I am, is the difference is we haven't, or we don't know yet if we have reached the point where once you're detained, you are going to be tortured and all the other things that do happen in my country. I mean, when the students get caught in the rebellion and when they get caught in manifestations and all this, they are beaten, they are raped, anything you can think of actually terrorizing people, so that later at some point they let them out and they tell their stories and other people just don't want to go out in the street. Nobody dares goes against Maduro, because if you get caught, you know what's going to happen. Then they have the parents telling the young people, you don't want to go do this. We don't want you to get killed or this happen to you. So one of my concerns was, when does that line also get crossed? Because from 2016 to now, I've seen all the lines crossed one more time and one more time. And this is not going to happen in America. Boom, there it is. You know, and this is not going to happen in the United States. Oops, I see it again. You know, so we keep pushing that line. And obviously, the only thing good I can say that I've been seeing is that we are quickly now out in the streets in big volume numbers. So when I started doing all this activism, I decided I need to find a way, and I'm still learning, so I don't have a speech yet put together of what my role is going to be in all this with the knowledge I have of combating actual regimes that are cruel, because I know things and tactics that you have to use in a different escalation. We're not there. We're not here that, I mean, like in Venezuela, if you get caught, you don't tell somebody don't run. No, you run. You run as much as you can. And the cop is not going to tell you stop, and somebody's going to come get you with a get out of jail free card, or or you spend a week in jail and you get out. It's a different situation. But some of the things could be applied, tactics before you get caught, now how to not get caught, or also how to be brave and courageous. I can't stress it enough. I don't think I have another place to go. It's, it was Venezuela to the United States, and where do you go from the US after the US falls? There's no place. You can't go to Central America. It's gonna be a really quick domino after that. If we let it happen here, that's it. It's this whole continent, the half of the world and Europe. So I have inquietud is the word. I'm trying to find the word in English. I have a concern, and I'm very reluctant to, or not reluctant, I'm worried. When does the acts that we're doing pacifically and protesting have to actually recognize that we've got to do something else, because things are changing pretty quickly. And I've been seeing signs today, like I was listening to the people, the news, and I saw how they took the guys in Hollywood by the Home Depot, right by our office, right, because we're right there on Highland Avenue and Highland and Sunset. We're like right there. And the way they're taking the people, the way they are emboldened. They've got they know that if they do anything wrong and they get caught, even after midterm elections, a president like Trump is going to let them go again, pardon again and again and again. And that's what happened in my country. Maduro emboldened Tren de Aragua originally. Go out in the streets, go terrify people, rob everybody, take everything you want.
The escalation is intentional and is pushing and seeing what they can get away with. If I can just speak to one of the points that you're talking about and say, the protests and rallies are a really important part of that overall nonviolent resistance. And but it's not the only thing. And we have organizations that are going into the courts. We have a lot of people who are contacting our representatives. And I want to reiterate what you said of everybody can find the place that works for them. And that there is a way for us to each find what we can do, maybe pushing our comfort zone a little bit. But if we each are acting from where we feel the most passionate, where we feel the most comfortable, it's going to have more of an impact. And I see, Stephen, you have your hand up.
Well, I simply want to add something to what Ingrid is speaking so eloquently about and what you just shared. Today is a perfect example of the rapid response network that's starting to form all over the country. Dodger Stadium, this morning, ICE started showing up with vehicles. They started showing up to create a staging area in the parking lot at Dodger Stadium. The word went out, a whole ton of people in our circles and more, went to Dodger Stadium to confront ICE, called the press. The press showed up immediately. The owner of the Dodgers was, because of people rapid responding this way, announced that the Dodgers will not cooperate with ICE. Now, this is just one incident in one town, But we're talking about that's the billionaire class responding. I mean, you think about who the Dodgers audience, who their fans are. Think about who those fans are. Those fans are all of us, are immigrants, are people who are not necessarily documented. Who the fact that your concern about can we move quickly enough? I'm feeling that this kind of kinetic, rapid response energy is starting to activate not only here in LA, but the next place you'll see what they did in LA is Chicago. That's next. And that's going to happen over the next couple of weeks. And, Trump's numbers are sinking. The population on both sides of the aisle are going, this is not right. I do not want the guy at the guy who I see at the store every day to be separated from his family, children being ripped out of their mother's arms, ICE going to high schools and going to courthouses to pull people out of hearings. This is so un-American. And I just want to say that all of us, not just like liberals and progressives on this side of the aisle, all of us are going to start reacting to this. And the numbers are starting to show it. So I'm more optimistic. And all of us, as Mary Linda said, need to find what we can do, small or large, small contribution. I'm going to do one more thing and then I have to go because I'm expected elsewhere.
Yeah,
I
and I
want,
want to say something before handing it.
I just want to tell a very, very quick African proverb. There was a fire, a huge fire in the rainforest. And all the animals fled the rainforest. They got up on a hill overlooking the rainforest. They're looking at their homes. Their homes are burning. This tiny little hummingbird swoops down to the river, gets one drop of water, and drops it onto the fire. The zebra's going, Hummingbird, hummingbird, what the hell are you doing? And the hummingbird doesn't even look at the zebra and goes back to the river, gets another drop of water, drops it on the fire. Now the lion kind of, Hummingbird, what do you think you're doing? And Hummingbird turns to all these animals that are gathered on the hill and says, I'm doing the best I can. That's for all of us. That's for all of us to find a way to participate in this, however small, however big, participate. We come together, we are so much more powerful than they are. And the narrative that tells you you're not, don't listen. People have the power. We do. And we've proven it throughout history.
I just want to add to what Stephen was just saying. What individuals can do. It's on Saturday after the day of craziness and protests and so forth. I went to Dodger Stadium and went to a game, and then as the national anthem was being sung, I was like, wait a minute, what's going? It's this girl, this young woman, who was singing the national anthem in Spanish. And I'm like, oh my God, that is so great, So, I got my phone out, took a shot of it. I thought it was fantastic. Turns out to be, that ended up being incredibly controversial because she was told by Dodger management to sing in English, not in Spanish, because she had planned to do it in Spanish. And management said, no, we don't want you to do it in Spanish. And she did it anyway. And I think what was really so many interesting things have come out of this. I learned from this whole story that in fact FDR had commissioned a version of the Star Spangled Banner to be written and sung in Spanish to help build a community of nations. So as a gesture of friendliness to our Spanish-speaking brethren and sisters, north and south, east and west, but then when I posted that, I saw on my Facebook feed all these crazy right wingers going, "Oh, how dare she do this? She's ruined her career. She'll never do this. She'll never be that." But already we're seeing what that one act is now resonating in a way that no one could have imagined. She's going on all the news shows now. People are, and it's phenomenal that is what the response is now. And now we see Dodger Stadium going, well, ICE, we'd rather not have you around. Perfect. It's one thing leads to another, right? and an individual the hummingbird can make that difference. So I just wanted to kind of reiterate that and share that story. The
Thank you.
singer's name is Neza, and she's actually Dominican American, and she's probably like 20 years old. And but I just, again, the courage to stand up there at Dodger Stadium with 55,000 people and defy the management was extraordinary. So anyway, it can be done and will be done.
Thank you. I have a couple people on the call who have been waiting to share. My brother has been very politically active since the 90s. Also has done a lot of impactful media work, started an organization, Undeniable, the Planetary Crisis Network. Piece of it for me is watching people responding to what's going on, and everybody is responding, as we heard from Ingrid, from their own context. And people from some communities in the US are going to have a very different response to police coming at them than others.
I think in the context of the conversation that we're having tonight, and thank you all from the East Coast, it's everything in LA has been incredibly inspiring, and knowing that meetings like this are taking all place and across the state and resulting in action that is actually making a huge national impact, and I think is clearly the front lines of taking on fascism in the country, and just the inspiration that I know everyone is taking. So thank everyone. I'd like to thank everyone here for the organizing work that you've been doing, and every single one of those ones, whether you're someone who can go in the front lines and face down ICE, or you're making signs, or you're making calls, it doesn't matter. A movement is made up of 1,000 hummingbirds, to riff off of what Stephen said. And each role is critical. I think one thing that I would like to do, just to put it in the context, is while what is happening in the United States right now is exceptional, Trump is clearly breaking norms and pushing the level of authoritarianism, the level of brazen corruption, the level of an open move towards a Christian nationalist, white supremacist, authoritarian and fascist system. Clearly something is different here. I'd also like to make sure we don't think of this as an exception. And undoing Trumpism, we're going back to something that was working. Because I would say that Trump and everything he's doing is really he's a symptom, he's a result, specifically of the last 50 years, starting with, as a counter reaction to the 60s movements, the movements towards liberation. There's been a very conscious march of destroying public education, of destroying media operations, of building a mass incarceration state, of rebuilding the ability of the United States military to intervene anywhere in the world, and of course, an incredible disparity in income that just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And so I would say that, the money in politics, untrammeled money in politics, all of the pieces of this allowed Trump to come in, because it certainly wasn't his cleverness. He was a result and a tool. And again, none of that is to underplay the difference that what is happening. But I also think it's important to realize how much violence is baked into the daily operations of the United States. There's a violence simply to having a military budget that's 5 times larger than the next military budget in the world. That is a murderous thing, simply to deploy those resources. But also the torture and mass slaughter is kind of the modus operandi of this state. If you look at from what happened in the Middle East, from the war in Iraq, quite salient, as we're looking at the exact same playbook being repeated now. There was, put the numbers at 1 million plus people who were murdered simply based on a war started on lies, and the torture and the destruction of civil society. And we see this again and again and again. The fact that we haven't ended slavery in this country, we allow it in our prisons, and the level of torture and dehumanization of people that happen there. The violence that the police visit upon communities in the best of times, right? This is that was happening under, but doesn't really matter which office is in power. The number of deportations, part of the problem that Trump's facing is the Democratic administrations were actually more efficient at it, right? They didn't make a TV reality show out of it, but they were doing mass deportations, right? More effectively, because they're, you know, better at government, right? So they're better at the awful things as well. You know, they're better at running the economy, but they're also better at running mass deportations. I think this is critical because as we look at what we're struggling for, what are we struggling for? Are we struggling for a return to before Trump was ever in power? Or are we recognizing that this was a system that was leading here and we actually need to look at more deep-seated change about income disparity, about a mass incarceration, you know, a mass incarceration state that has millions of our people locked up, that it's a profit center, that all of the horrible things that we've had, an oil industry that has known for decades that it's about to wipe out, that it's capable of wiping out human civilization, and yet has bought every political, social institution in the country to continue it. So I'd like to put that question of like, what are we fighting and where is that violence, to say that while we need to take on these very immediate tasks before us of challenging ICE, of making sure that we maintain relatively free and fair elections as we can, that all of these things are really critical, that we actually need to look at taking on all of the source level violence and all of the ongoing social factors that led inevitably to Trump, that led to this happening. Why was it that even though, I mean, and they knew last time, Biden's people knew, Harris's people knew that maybe not speaking out against genocide might lose in the White House. It was more important to not stand in the way of that and allow fascism in. What is it that's going on in this country, you know, where those the kind of decisions are made? So I would challenge all of us, while not taking away from the urgency of the work at hand, that we realize we've got a much bigger task at hand, which is we are in a very likely situation that even if we are able to maintain the functioning of democracy, that we are swinging back and forth between completely unhinged death cult fascism and a kind of ineffective response, and that we swing back and forth as the fundamental unworking nature of the society continues to unfold. So it's a challenge for all of us to be thinking much deeper about what the task is at hand, while we take on, and again, incredible gratitude for everybody's work out there, because LA has been showing the way in taking on what's immediately in front of us. But if we don't tie it to something more systemic, we're not going to get out of this cycle, and the cycle will get uglier even if we get a GOP majority out and are able to do that. It won't stop, I think, the cycle that's continuing. It's a little different, Mary Linda, but I think just out of
No,
the
that was
conversation.
great. That was great. And I think that just the idea of political reform, getting the money out of politics, facing all of the different elements that are undermining a humanitarian, humanistic, kind, caring for all beings and the planet way of, you know, a push towards that, as opposed to the opposite direction that we're in. But yes, acknowledging that there's work to be done. Thank you, Harold, for staying up late and being with us today. It's great to have you here. I have Bill Kelly. Bill was talking about an issue earlier today on our Neela chat that I thought it would be great to share here. Why don't you take it away, Bill?
Well, thank you. It is late for the meetings time period, so I'll try to be brief. I think what we have to understand here is what's going on with money. and with private companies that are profiting off of the activities of ICE and the Trump administration. ICE has contracts with 200 private companies. The biggest one is called the GEO Group, which runs detention centers, including Adelanto up in San Bernardino County in the Mojave Desert near Victorville, which had been closed down by the state of California during the pandemic because of health conditions there and really atrocious conditions. On June 17th, the judge ruled that it could reopen to full capacity. And this is a place where people rounded up on the streets here in Los Angeles will likely wind up.
Discussion with those that were being detained right in the cells who said that they did not have a change of clothes for 10 days, not a change of underwear, and they had the same towel that they had to wash over and over again, and that they couldn't call out because they didn't have a PIN number. And they showed us all the forms that they had filled out over and over again to try to get a PIN number. I would say that GEO has to clearly improve its treatment of these detainees, which at this point are about 1,200. And GEO makes $1 billion from its private prison business. It actually makes the most out of any private prison company in the United States. And also, I might add, it donated $1 million to the Trump campaign. So we know what this is all about. And one thing's for sure, these detainees need to be treated with more humane conditions.
We have had laundromats, we have had churches, we have had elementary schools, we have had small stores raided by FBI, Homeland Security, in cooperation with ICE, snatching folks, not asking them for identification, not providing identification or judicial warrants themselves. We talked to the agents in the detention facility, and we did not get concrete information about how folks were lawfully being detained, if they did have criminal records or not. Some of that is still being decided while folks are being detained. And something else we learned is that people are being detained and separated and let go by race. Now, I don't know about you, but if this administration said that it was looking for folks with criminal records and they have detained U.S. citizens, legal immigrants, and folks who are legally going through the immigration status process, then tell me why you are also racially profiling folks and then separating them and doing different things to each of these communities. This is impacting our economy, our regional and state economy, and we have an administration that is interested in manufacturing a violent and traumatizing show called LA Raids to distract us from the larger issues that are impacting everyday Americans, like the cost of living, the cost of food, the cost of health care. And now we are dealing with an administration that is racially profiling and detaining folks without giving them the representation that they need. You are denying folks their 4th, their 5th, and their 14th Amendment rights when you are not giving them due process, when people do not know why they have been picked up other than the color of their skin. And we must demand more from this administration. That is what Congress is trying to do.
He has a West Coast regional office off Sepulveda near the 405 freeway. It's in the city of Los Angeles. And they're the biggest contractor. And I just want to talk for a minute about the scope of what's going on with ICE. ICE early in June launched what was called Operation at Large, which doubled the quota for the roundup of immigrants from 1,500 a day to 3,000, and authorizes up to 21,000 National Guard troops on the streets of the United States. The budget bill that's going through in Washington would provide, ICE's budget would grow by 13 times what it is now. There would be 45 billion for detention. There would be 69 billion to militarize the border, 27 billion for hiring additional personnel, 12 billion for grants to states that enact anti-immigrant policies, and 5 billion to the Defense Department to deploy military personnel on the border, $150 billion total. So we're about ready to see a massive militarization and a major expansion in detention centers in the US. And my idea is we have to start educating the public about the money, the companies that are making money off of this. And one idea I had was to go out to the West Coast regional headquarters of the GEO Group and have sort of like a flash mob type protest out there, combined with both vehicles and with people, on the sidewalk. And the other one I had was to go to Adelanto in a caravan and get both of these things on TV news. I was heartened last night. The last thing I want to talk about is the surveillance technologies that have been financed by local government are now being tapped by ICE. Automatic license plate readers, which are in more than 5,000 communities in the US. And localities are beginning to fight back on the use of this and push back. Kalamazoo turned off its system. Denver decided to not expand the system and to cancel its contract. Austin, there's pressure in Florida where the Highway Patrol initiated 83,000 inquiries into the database related to immigration. In Illinois, the Attorney General is investigating a police department that gave data on a woman who was seeking an abortion, who resided in Texas and they thought had traveled to Illinois. So people are pushing back. And last night I organized a local group and we went to our city council here, which uses these cameras that are produced and operated by a company called Flock Safety. And we asked them to review the contract and to think about whether we should have these cameras. And it took 10 seconds for the city council to agree to the review. 10 seconds. So I think there's a lot that can be done to push back through local government, through state government. The GEO Group, they have business licenses with local government. They have state regulations that they have to file. They probably get breaks on their electricity rates because they're a large facility, and the California Public Utilities Commission allows breaks for industrial facilities to encourage industry. There are many places you can press and squeeze to exert financial pressure on those companies that are profiting. And I think this group and groups across the country need to network and start doing these things. I think local officials will fight back. I heard Mayor Gordo in Pasadena on No King's Day, and he was fired up, and Pasadena uses these cameras, Glendale uses them, Arcadia, there are 80 cities in California that use them, even Arcata in Humboldt County. So I think this is an area to start pressing, shut the money off, shake them up, let them know that we know what's going on and that they're profiting, and come at them from every angle. That's my idea. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bill. What you touched on in a very short time, thank you for being so concise, is a number of different ways that we can have an impact. And I think you've been saying this for a while, going at the city and state level and going after the contract, very direct impact. You bring up one of the things that I think is really important about coalition building is that I'm going to use another example of an action that someone started. Dusky wasn't able to be here today. She was on the last meeting But she started raising canes, which were Medicaid against all of the actions that have been stripping. She put together a toolkit so that other groups and other areas could go and pop up across Southern California, and she shared it in other states as well, so that as a coalition across larger areas, we can share actions and very specific toolkit of how somebody could start it. And we had them popping up over LA because they were able to hit the ground running. Or an action like at Avelo Airlines in Burbank, where the ice were being shipped out of. We have had a really rich conversation tonight. I put in the chat some positive outcomes that I was going to speak on. Rob brought up the Dodgers. Also, another really impactful thing that I put in the chat was protesters chased federal agents out of LA County hotels. So that's one of the things that went across all of our signal chats was the hotels that they were staying in, and people just started showing up. Also, ICE is having to get in really quick and out because 150 people are showing up. Soon as in the rapid response, people are alerting, ICE is showing up. We saw that today in Hollywood at the Home Depot.
Hey! Get back! Let's go! Get back! There you go! There you go! Come on! Get back on the sidewalk! Get back!
These are ways that we can have an impact. Wanted to give people a chance to mention actions that might be inspiring to others, or you might want people to join. I have ones that I can drop in the chat that are national actions as well. There are, so if people can get ready to get a chance to share. So there is a response to the Israeli war on Iran. That happens to be one that is in LA, but these are larger groups that probably have ones in other areas. No Kings 2.0 has been proposed for July 4th. And
Mary Linda,
yes.
I just wanted to say that according to the Associated Press, the court ruled that the California National Guard will stay in federal hands, and Trump has wide authority over it. So that's really bad news.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Frida, for sharing that. I just want to mention another piece that we've been talking about from the beginning is conscientious response within the police and military. There is an organization. Bill, are you still here? Do you remember? Yeah, you're still here. The name of that organization, there is an organization that helps people know how to respond.
Yeah, they were actually protesting during the military parade in Washington with another veterans group. The one I know about is called About Face.
Right.
About Face.
Thank
It's
you.
based in New York City.
Yeah. Thank you. And Ingrid?
Yes, I'd like to mention that Avelo Airlines, we're having the last Sunday of every month here during the summer. It's on Mobilize, and we're going to be at Burbank. I believe Nancy is somewhere or was somewhere in this call. I don't know if
I don't think she's on anymore.
that I co-host with Nancy. I do the Burbank on Mobilize, so if
Thank
anything,
you.
right there. And then Nancy has another one for the is it June 24th for the
Yes,
Roe
thank
versus
you.
Wade.
And I have, so I'm going to pop a couple images in that I have for the next couple minutes. For those of you who may not be as familiar, if you just look up Mobilize online and you put in your area, you can find all kinds of in-person actions as well as online programming. And you can put in particular things, find the groups that you like, and you could be busy every night of the week, every day of the week, all day long. Uh, there's a lot that people are doing, and there are some large organizations that are doing very important work, keeping all of us unified. Women's March, Move On, Indivisible, public.
Oh, public citizen, yes. Mary Linda.
Yes, Frida.
I would like to help with the West Coast coordination. I think that it would be best if maybe a few people say they're willing to help with coordination, and then we have a Zoom meeting of 3, 4, 5, however many, and then we come up with an agenda for the next one, a list of the activities, an email list. Each meeting becomes more efficient.
Think that Frida is right, that a group getting together to talk about the structure and the overall way that we can connect. I think if we get, like Frida was saying, 4 or 5 people who want to help keep this continuing, I think it's powerful and could have a lot of impact. Thank you all for being here. It takes every single one of us. We can all walk away or fly away with the idea of being that hummingbird, and because we are having an impact. And if you haven't heard, the 3.5% that is required, that has been historically required to overturn a fascist regime, we are very close to that, and perhaps even at it in the streets last Saturday across the country. All right, well, thank you. And
thank you, Mary Linda, and everyone.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Free to unmute and say goodbye.
Good night.
Good night.